Constructive Criticism is sponsored by Oasis Games. MTGOasis.com is the place to get cards for your next Magic event. Try them out with code CCMTG for 15% off of your first order, and use the code WouldThatBeGood for 4% off of every order. Want to support the show directly? Head on over to patreon.com/CCMTG to check out some awesome benefits and future goals for the show. Thanks for listening, and here's this week's episode of Constructed Criticism. Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructed Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructedCriticism.com.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Constructed Criticism YouTube channel. I'm Spencer, joined by the most handsome co-host, Abe Stein.
Suck it, Mason.
the least 6'2" and single of my co-hosts. How tall are you?
6 feet tall.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm 5'8", so.
Yeah, Mason's got the 2 inches on me, and it's hard to compete.
You know, he's got something. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Mason. We're here to talk about Hammer Time, a deck that I have actually never played before. Really quickly, can you just kind of tell the listeners about the coaching that you offer and what we're doing?
Yeah, so I'm a very experienced competitive Magic player. So I've played a lot of modern decks over the years, kind of as the format has gone through many bands and iterations. You know, I've always offered coaching, and I think offering the specific coaching as I've had a little less time to invest into the overall competitive everything because of COVID and because of just the lack of paper offerings. But I do think that Hammer Time is not only like the best deck in Modern, it is also one of the most technically tight and difficult and kind of has the most moving pieces of a best deck in Modern that I've seen in a long time. I think there's a lot to learn about the deck, and that I've spent a lot of time really coming to understand it and figure it out over the last few months. And so I really want to be able to offer a way for people who are interested in learning about or interested in getting into playing this deck that kind of seems a little daunting or, has a lot of these very technical lines to it and has a lot to consider at every moment. Really make that an easier thing for people and offer them my help in getting to be a better Hammer Time player, because I think that honestly what holds this deck back most in results at like an LGS level or even at like a local 1K level that I notice when I play my like 60 to 80 person events near me in paper is that the Hammer pilots will make a lot of mistakes. They're very avoidable with a lot of experience. And so, I'm really just trying to help people get over that hump and get to the point where they are very comfortable playing what is the best deck. And so that's what I'm really trying to help people with my coaching.
So I have played every single card in this 75 at one point or another. I've never played this composition of cards together, so why don't we talk about the deck?
Yeah, so the premise of the deck is very simple. Colossus Hammer makes your thing very big. Sigarda's Aid lets you do it at instant speed and skip the equip cost. Puresteel Paladin lets you skip the equip cost. And really the deck is about powering out just a big board advantage very quickly, just 1 or 2 huge creatures. Urza Saga is huge in this because it alone can accomplish this game plan on a lot of your more like Springleaf Drum, Memnite, Ornithopter kind of draws where you're quickly developing to the board, making a bunch of mana. You can make some Saga tokens and just use those to pressure the opponent. And the rest of your deck, Esper Sentinel is just another good artifact, proactive, disruptive creature that gives you some cards and some room to try to assemble your combo. And most of your games kind of play like this twin infect affinity hybrid kind of thing where you're kind of balancing going between your combo game plan and your fair to the board, I'm going to beat you down game plan. And so there's a lot of small things to know, like playing with Urza Saga when you're going to float mana on your 3rd chapter, when you want to make a token, when you're going to grab your Cranial Plating, like what hands you can keep that you're going to grab your Cranial Plating off a Stoneforge Mystic, and just have your game plan be more fair and less about trying to put a hammer on something when you need to aggressively set yourself up to draw 2 hammers, or just set a hammer in play and hope that you find a Puresteel Paladin or a Core Outfitter to put it in play, to put it on a creature.
I was going to
Most
say,
of it-
what are the functions of Shadow Spear and Cranial Plating typically in the deck?
Let's just go over a bit of the like typical openings you'll want to see
Sure.
out of your hands. So one of the like strongest openings in the dark you can have is going to be an Urza Saga, a Springleaf Drum, and a 0-drop, and ideally a 1-drop creature to go with that, like or a Sigarda's Aid, if you're on the play, because it's very unlikely that your opponent can remove your 0-drop creature most of the time in the format. People don't keep hands that do that a lot, or if you have like that and an Esper Sentinel, it's impossible to deal with both. So that just puts you in a position to be making multiple Saga tokens for your first 2 turns, and then searching up, either if you have an Aid in play, maybe getting a Hammer, or just getting Shadow Spear to kind of push those tokens through and make that your entire game plan. But really, the Shadow Spear is mostly just used for the trample and lifelink ability to push through a hammered creature. It's very easy to move around and equip. It's kind of like once you already have 1 or 2 hammers, because a lot of your deck finds hammers. Like your deck has so many actual or virtual copies of Colossus Hammer between Urza Saga, Stoneforge Mystic, and the hammers themselves, that if you've already found one, but you're still casting Stoneforge Mystics and stuff, having these other things to get that are not hammer has a lot of value. The Cranial Plating is kind of like your 5th hammer, but it's kind of hedged in a lot of different ways around the way that the format is. A lot of people will try to beat your deck with Engineered Explosives, so it costing 2 is really good. People will try to Pithing Needle your Colossus Hammers, or Mill can sometimes Surgical Extraction or Extirpate your Colossus Hammers, and so having Cranial Plating to go get is very valuable. Or you'll just identify early on that it's going to be hard to keep a creature with an 8 around or a creature with a hammer around because of the removal your opponent has, and so being able to find a 2-cost permanent that you can move around easily just plays out very well against like Chalice of the Void or against Archmage's Charm. There's a lot of things that like Cranial Plating accomplishes, even though it's very different than how it played in like Affinity years ago. Yeah, so you have the like Saga Drum opening where you'll lead on Saga on turn 1, and that can be kind of risky. You have to think a lot about whether or not you actually want to play your 0-drop out of your hand or not, because if you lose that mana source and you lose access to it, you wind up getting no value out of your Urza Saga, which is often your best card. The other common openings are just ones where you like lead on a turn 1 Esper Sentinel or Sigarda's Aid, or if your hand has Core Outfitter or Pure Steel Paladin, maybe just playing out your hammer on turn 1 can be pretty common. Like most of this deck is actually very stock. The only things that are kind of questioned flex spots that you'll see are different from this deck list to other hammer deck lists is the 1 copy of Ginger Brute, which you can get off of Urza Saga if you need a creature immediately. If you just have a hammer in your hand, you need a creature that can attack and be unblocked. Ginger Brute does that really well. The 2 Core Outfitters, which I think are just the best card for having the most consistency. You just want more copies of your Pure Steel Paladins in a lot of matchups to do your plan A, as the format has gotten more disruptive to it.
Remind me, does Core Outfitter can it equip to itself, or does it have to equip to another?
Yes. So it enters battlefield, and you may attach target equipment you control to target creature you control, so you can target itself.
Yeah, I couldn't. I played Quest for the Holy Relic, and that deck played that card, so I couldn't remember.
Well, Argentum Armor angle.
Yeah. It's the same deck, man. That's basically what a hammer is. It's just an Argentum Armor.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the?
It's also nice that Core Outfitter gets around the Metal Craft requirement for Pure Steel Paladin, which in some matchups can come up if they like Kolaghan's command you multiple times. And then the last flex spot is this Horizon Canopy, which is usually a Steel Shaper's Gift. But I found that with the sideboard having Sanctifier Index for the amount of Grixis that's popped up online recently, and adding the Core Outfitters to the main deck, just how much white there is in your mana base, you like really like having the extra white source. So at least for now, with this configuration of deck with so many double white spells, having extra white sources is where.
Remind me, Sigarda's Aid is
cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash, and then whenever an equipment enters the battlefield in your control, you may attach it to target creature you control.
Got it. Okay.
There is some cute stuff you can do with 2 Sigarda's Aids in play that comes up in some corner cases that I don't think many people know about. I know I didn't know about it for at least a month, where if you have 2 Sigarda's Aids in play and you have 2 creatures, you can cast a hammer, and then each Sigarda's Aid will trigger. or just any equipment, and then you can target each creature individually. So if they are only on Lightning Bolt or on Holy Heat, and you have two creatures and one hammer, you can target both, and then if they let one trigger resolve, then that creature has the hammer on it.
Got it.
And then
That's interesting.
Have to resolve the other trigger if it's a May. So it really puts them in the bind to have to kill everything in that moment. And so it's not often that it comes up, but it's definitely something that
can come up.
Deep knowledge kind of.
The Sanctifiers, you said they were for Esper?
For Grixis, yeah.
Grixis, sorry.
They're also good against just the Ragavan DRC,
sure.
Like Unholy Heat shell in general. The pro red, pro black is very good.
Got it.
Shutting down the access to the graveyard is actually really strong against a lot of decks too. It can just take a lot of edge off, and without a card that is so difficult for them to answer and requires so much planning and so many resources. That matchup can be really, really tough, but I find that it's close to a coin flip. If not a little favored for me in my experiences in the leagues, with the Sanctifiers in my sideboard.
Depending on who you ask, this deck is usually mentioned in top three modern decks. Do you find that you have a pretty big target on your back going into leagues right now?
I think it's kind of weird, right? Like, leagues are so open and the decks are so the things you play against are so varied.
Yeah.
You're really not sure what you're going to get. But I will say that it feels like every deck in the format now, when you build your deck, people talk about, or you think about, what am I boarding in against Hammer? And that's, I think, about as good as it can get as far as being targeted in Modern, other than maybe those weeks where Solitude was the best card and everyone was playing Solitude decks. That was a very direct reaction to Hammer Time being so strong that people needed to just start playing the cards that respected it the most. But now I think things have actually mellowed out and people are just building decks that have good game plans to fight against Hammer. But I think Hammer has so many options to be fighting back and so many tools at its disposal to kind of present the right questions and play this kind of the shell game of which thing is going on and what kind of game are you gonna have to play to move the goalposts around and make games a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, in all honesty, it reminds me of the original version of Affinity that was in Modern, the Dark Confidant version in a lot of ways, where you basically are you have this value go wide game plan, but also just have cranial plating, but kind of Hammers acting as that plating instead. Cool. Do you want to go over some cyber plans, or do you want to jump into a league and talk about that as we play?
We can go over briefly just a couple of cyber plans against the macro identities of matchups. Yeah. Thoughtseize is for everything that you Thoughtseize combo decks, Force of Vigor decks. Because that was actually going to be cards you'll play against.
That was going to be one of my questions. Was actually about Force of Vigor, so I'm glad you brought it up. Do you just assume everyone playing green is playing Force of Vigor?
No, it's usually only a handful of decks that actually play many copies, and some decks are actually moving away from it. I know that Money Pile is cutting back on Force of Vigors because they're only really good in the Hammer matchup, but they're in the Belcher deck. They're in Rhinos plays them because they play as many pitch spells as possible. Elemental still plays them. Really, against anything that uses pitch spells to try to get ahead of you is where I really like Thoughtseize.
Okay.
That's going to be any Solitude decks and any Force of Vigor decks. Because often when it's not getting one of those cards, the information that card isn't there is extremely valuable, and those decks are just interactive enough that being able to take one card out of them, taking the right card out of them, gives you enough of a window.
Talk to me about the split on Prismatic Ending and Path to Exile.
Prismatic Ending, Path to Exile split is mostly because of Murktide Regent. Prismatic Ending is an incredibly efficient answer. You use it a lot to tag stray Alpine Moons or Ragavans or Dragon Grid Channelers or Ren and Sixes or Tarmogoyfs. There's tons of things you can answer with Prismatic Ending, but Murktide Regent, specifically in the way that the blue-red matchup plays out, and also against a bunch of the random Reanimator decks, you often path yourself against Burn because of Deflecting Palm. There's a bunch of corner cases where you just need an instant speed, unconditional answer. It's really good in the Mirror too to have an instant speed removal spell. So you can't really afford to play just all endings. That's the reason for that split. The Pithing Needle is just a really good utility card to be able to get off of Urza Saga. Usually you want it in any matchup where your opponent is going to have Engineer Explosives loops with their Luris. That's like actually, even if they don't have it looped, like just drawing it against a deck like Blue Red Murktide that is so reliant on the card is good enough to make boarding it worth it. The Seal of Cleansing is for the mirror match and for random artifact decks. And the Soul Guide Lantern is kind of like, it plays this role of being both your cantrip artifact for long grindy games where you're relying on your Luris, because it can be hard to get threats back against a lot of the Solitude decks. If you have a Luris there, being able to draw another card off Soul Guide's good. And there's also just a decent amount of Reanimator or Graveyard strategies you'll come across where it's good to just have the first copy with your Urza Sagas and stuff. But that really is it for choices. There's a lot of options you can play in your sideboard. But
yeah, Saga in combination with Luris is not something that I had thought a lot about as I have been playing Modern. But that is really adds to the consistency of your game plan post board and in the main deck, it sounds like.
Yeah, being able to find the right bullets or just being able to have the redundancy on a lot of these cards, like the fact that your opponent can Thoughtseize your Sigarda's Aid, but then in a few turns, you can make sure you'll have an aid because it'll still be in your graveyard to cast with Luris once you have it, or being able to tutor up your Soul Guide Lantern and loop it against a graveyard deck, or finding your Seal of Cleansing and then looping that with Luris. There's just a lot of ways things can go right for you, and Luris is definitely a huge part of what makes this deck so strong. Is that it's the best Urza Saga deck, I think, and it's definitely like in that also one of the best Luris decks. So. It's really proactive, really good. That really sums up most of what I have to say outside of some more like niche interaction. There's like tons of little things you can learn about the way that these cards play. Like one I do want to make sure I mention is the Inkmoth Nexus and Colossus Hammer interaction that I know a lot of people aren't aware of until they play against the deck, where Colossus Hammer says that Inkmoth loses flying, but then if you activate Inkmoth Nexus again, it reapplies flying despite being equipped.
Sure. Because it gains flying as the... Oh, no, it doesn't get... it. Okay.
Well, it gains flying and infect when you activate the ability. So if you activate the Inkmoth Nexus, and then you... Like, let's say I'm resolving an Urza Saga tree. This comes up a lot. You'll have an Inkmoth Nexus, an Urza Saga, and another land in your hand. And your Saga will be ticking the 3, so you can float a mana, activate your Inkmoth, go get your hammer, Sigarda's Aid trigger, put it on the Inkmoth Nexus. Now it's an 11/11 without flying. Play that land and give it flying again.
Got it.
You can like jump your Inkmoth again. So other than that, I think that's really most of the things I can think of off the top of my head that are like must say like things about the cards that are not obvious, and anything else that comes up while we play, we can play. And the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna Spencer mentioned that he just didn't want to fuss with Moto mechanics, which is totally understandable and reasonable if you haven't played a lot of Moto recently.
You really just for the video, like just I think it's bad for the viewers for me to like my first time back on Moto in like almost 2 years is just a video like that would not be fun for the
but Spencer and I are going to talk through a couple matches where I'm going to basically just be listening to him, and we're going to discuss the things that he's thinking about, that I'm thinking about over these games before we make any decisions, and then navigate them together. So
awesome. And we'll see you guys in the games. All right. Choose up to one companion. I think we should choose it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Luris is a good companion.
Well, this hand is literally the exact thing you talked about, except that it has a 2-drop. Does that matter to it? I guess, though, the Urza Saga technically is another creature, right?
Without a 1-mana spell to cast off of the Springleaf Drum, we don't have to play the Ornithopter, so we can just play Urza Saga Springleaf Drum,
right,
and pass.
Yeah,
the next turn it goes to Chapter 2, and we can play our land and
okay,
or Ornithopter and activate.
That makes sense.
We also have good insurance with the Core Outfitter that if something goes wrong in this plan, our Urza Saga grabbing a hammer and the fact we have 2 white sources to cast the Outfitter,
right,
means that we'll be able to use a hammer. So
yep, makes sense to me. I would keep this hand and lead on Saga as well. One of the nice things about Saga is that it gets around Thoughtseize for like a thing that is basically a spell in your deck.
Yeah, I mean they're not taking that from you. Okay, so we drew.
Oh, so that is more interesting now. So now we can just play Colossus and equip next turn, right? Because but we can't. Is the second mode create a creature on Saga? I don't remember.
Yeah, the second mode makes the construct tokens. So we could play. That is an option now available to us. We could play Concealed Courtyard, play Springleaf Drum, play Ornithopter, play Colossus Hammer, and pass, and then next turn play the Core Outfitter. And that will delay our.
Is there a reason?
Saga development.
Do we need to do it on Concealed Courtyard though? Because like we can still make double white next turn, even if we play the Saga, because we can just tap the token that the Saga makes and the Courtyard to play the Outfitter.
Well, the issue is that Saga is 2 mana and tap the Saga to make a token.
Oh, so I see.
That's why exposing the Ornithopter is also dangerous.
I see. Okay.
And why if we aren't going to play the Hammer this turn, or we aren't going to go for this Outfitter line, I would usually just hold the Ornithopter in my hand, because that way if they have Unholy Heat or Lightning Bolt or whatever to answer the Ornithopter,
I see.
We still have the Springleaf Drum.
Okay. Yeah, I would.
It's also possible our opponent's playing like Ponza or something, and they're going to pillage us. But
yeah, they're either playing like. I mean, it's very possible they're playing Ponza. I mean, if that's the case, though, it's pillage, destroy an artifact and a land.
Or
a land. Yeah, I think that like. I don't hate the idea of just still playing Saga plus Springleaf Drum, but I think that like. It's funny because like if we, yeah, I think that I actually like the more aggressive line of Concealed Courtyard, Ornithopter, Springleaf Drum, Colossus Hammer.
You like trying to just get out ahead of them here?
Well, so I'm thinking about like Unholy Heat, right? And like even if they Unholy Heat the Ornithopter this turn, like let's say that they do that. You can just put the, like...
Right, we can just play Saga the next turn.
Yeah, and also, like, you could also just play Core Outfitter and equip if they, like, are bozos and tap out. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see merits to all of these lines. I think that, it's tough. I think on the play, I would definitely lean towards the Saga line myself, but I don't see anything wrong with the thought process behind this line, so let's go for it.
They did not reveal a companion, right?
No. They might be playing Classic Jund now that they've played Swamp.
Yeah, it looks like they are. Well, our opponent did in fact tap out.
And we drew another Mana Source. So we can actually have it every which way we want this turn. And we could play the Saga, end the Memnite, make white, Outfitter the Ornithopter and attack.
That is the line that is in my head. I was trying to think if there's any merit to putting the Inkmoth into play right now, and I don't think there is.
I think if we were to put the Inkmoth into play, I would want to pick up Lurrus this turn instead of going for an equip.
Yeah.
Which still might be good, because if they tap out again, then we can just...
Well, I don't think the thing is that I don't think they're going to tap out again if we play the Inkmoth. Yeah. And the fact that they tapped out makes me want to equip this turn. Although I guess like they could just have Fatal Push in their hand, which is why they tapped out, and they're like, whatever, I'll take 10. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean they can also chump block the Ornithopter this turn.
Oh, the Ornithopter loses flying. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's
right. We will just have the biggest thing in play, and it will force them to have Fatal Push or Terminator or Abrupt Decay or something of the like. And with Eurosog in play, we'll be able to develop even more big things and be able to tutor like Shadow Spear and then.
Sure. Yeah, I like playing.
If they can't answer the Ornithopter.
I like turning our Ornithopter sideways this turn.
I do too. I think there's like some merits to, depending on if I knew more about what this kind of like traditional Jund deck looked like. if it was something more commonly played and I was more more in tune with it, having a sense for whether or not they would tap out next turn or not, maybe would make me want to play the Ink Moth, because
That was
you get a little scared. If
that was
I
an
think
interesting
it
block.
That was an interesting block. I might have Unearth or something. Or maybe they just want to get that in the graveyard because they can make 2 tokens in 2 turns. Or
next turn, right? Because they have 4 mana this turn. Okay.
Cascade into Ragavan. Okay.
Well, they did tap out again.
Oh, and the Exalted Bloodbraid Elf. I was about to talk about how great it was going to feel to trade this Core Outfitter. But I don't get to do that.
That's an aggressive attack.
I agree. But but I also think they have to make it. I think with the amount of blockers they have, anything that changes what's going on with the board state is likely fatal for them anyway.
We can make a token this turn. Or we could go grab Luris. I think regardless, we're attacking with every creature, right?
You attack with every creature.
I don't see why not. Like, I'm happy to trade this Memnite for their... Maybe I'm not happy to trade the Memnite for the token. Maybe I'm wrong.
The Memnite is certainly in a weird position where this Ragavan and the Ignoble Hierarch together make it so that the Memnite's not actually a productive blocker.
Yeah, that was my initial thought, was just that, like, I'm probably never blocking with that Memnite, but it's also a mana source for me.
Well, we're going to be pretty flush on creatures, and we have plenty of mana sources, so I'm not too worried about the mana source.
Okay. Yeah, my initial thought would be to make a token this turn and attack with everything.
And which land do you think you want to play?
I would probably just play the Ink Moth, but maybe, yeah, I think that I would play the Ink Moth Nexus, especially like, yeah, I would play the Ink Moth.
Do you want to send all of the creatures or just the artifact creatures? Because I kind of think I might want to leave back the Outfitter in case they attack with just Ragavan.
That's fair. You could attack
and then they have a removal spell for my Saga token, which will only be a 5/5, so it could be heated.
I don't really want to attack with the Memnite if I'm not attacking with the Core Outfitter. Just because, like, actually, you know what? That actually sounds great. I changed my mind.
So I think that if they trade off, the Memnite does have a lot of value to us because of the Urza Saga, where it gives all our constructs +1/+1 as well, and so I think that they might trade off with it. But they also they should block the Ornithopter.
Right, but that means that means they're just not blocking the Ornithopter, and next turn we can give it trample. So, yeah, I like attacking with the Memnite. Sick Memnite.
Memnite serving up the looks, scuttering on them.
Dude, those full art Memnites that they did when they did those player promos were so hot.
I remember.
Do you remember when they used to just mail us Magic cards?
I think those ones were game day promos, though.
Were they?
If we're getting into boomer talk in the coaching session, I think those might have been.
Were they? They might have been game day promos. You might be right.
But I do remember when I got my Cryptic Commands in the mail. I also remember when I sadly got my Dave Judgments in the mail because they were like, everyone gets some Dave Judgments because we're not doing this anymore. Because they do have Unearth, and they have Goblin Bombardment.
What is happening to us right now?
They have Crocs in their graveyard. They're just playing some Jund, man.
Goblin Bombardment is brought to you by Constructor Criticism Network, Sam Black edition. Yeah, that makes sense.
As far as sideboarding goes, I think... Let's see, we saw Kroxa, Seasoned Pyromancer, Ragavan, Renin 6, and Unearth.
I know I don't want Path to Exile against this deck because I don't want to give this traditional Jund deck mana.
Yeah. We probably want
Yeah,
number of
those-
the Sanctuary decks because they'll line up well against their removal.
Yeah.
I'm unsure about Prismatic Ending, but they do have Ragavan. They don't have DRC, so if enough of their things are 3-drops, Prismatic Ending is actually pretty bad.
Well, they also have the mana,
They do have Ignoble Hierarch.
what is it called?
Ignoble Hierarch instead of Noble Hierarch.
Is that actually what its name is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a unruly goblin in Jund instead of a
Got it.
honorable maiden.
Yeah, I would definitely bring in the anti-Jund beater guy. I would probably bring in all of them. Because it also stops Croxa, doesn't it?
Yeah, it will shut down Croxa, and it will shut down their Unearth stuff for the most part. Like Unearth, Seasoned Pyromancer will be shut out. I'm probably want the Soul Guide Lantern too.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
It gives us the long game equity of being able to draw cards with Luris, and also shuts off any graveyard stuff they have if we don't have a Sanctifier. Kind of still iffy on the Prismatic Endings, but I suppose we can just try them.
So I would think that this is not a matchup where, like, I'm going to be grabbing Gingerbread. You can sideboard and then we can talk about it, by the way. You only have 50 seconds.
Yeah, this is going to be minus Gingerbread and then minus the Memnites and...
Sure.
So the Memnite thing, it's actually kind of close between Memnite and Ornithopter because of Ragavan specifically. Where if they have Ragavan, you might want to just have Memnite to block, but Ornithopter doesn't die to Renin 6. I personally lean on the side of getting your creature Renin 6 when you're on the draw. If you have a Springleaf Draw in hand, is pretty unacceptable feeling.
This could be just the way my brain works, but I would keep this hand. It's obviously not very explosive, but it's got everything.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the weaker kinds of hands we can have, where it's just it doesn't have a lot of dimension to it, but it does have redundancy to it and does do the thing. So I would be inclined to keep as well. We have all of our pieces, and we have a lot of draws that really expedite what we're doing. Right, if we just draw a hammer or draw a Shade or draw a Pure Steel Paladin, all of these things are pretty good. Even just a Springleaf Drum's pretty good. So
yeah, I guess you're just grabbing Godless Shrine.
Yeah. Good draw, opponent.
Right when he needed it, man. I'm kind of tempted to actually kill this 1-drop though.
I can see why that's appealing. My question is though, is time walking
ourselves to stop a Blood Red Elf?
Opponent here worth time walking ourselves, because our alternative is to Stoneforge Mystic for our Colossus Hammer this turn.
Now that we've drawn the 2-drop though, the Pro Red guy, and we can play that and the hammer next turn. That's actually just probably the best play by a lot, is just playing the Mystic.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times we're ending if our role in the matchup was to not be the combo deck, I would definitely agree with you. I think it's just a very, very strong tempo play. It trades one of our cards that we're kind of dubious about for a card that's clearly going to be worth it in their hand that's very slow to develop. But I think that because we don't really have anything else to do with it, it's not mana efficient for us.
Bloodghast.
We got a Bloodghast and a Crime and Punishment. Okay.
What is happening?
I wish we played a Sanctifier deck, I guess.
Oh, that's an interesting draw. So, yeah, I'm still on the same line personally. So I'm definitely playing the Sanctifier this turn. I'm wondering if I should play the hammer or not now, though.
Well, we don't have Metalcraft, and there is something I don't think I mentioned when we were talking about the deck, where it is a lot of times advantageous to not hold Colossus Hammers for your Pure Steel Paladins, because generating a priority pass where you draw a card for casting the equipment can just undo the good that the Paladin's doing, where equipping is often more important than one card.
So my thought,
even with Paladin, having it in play is really strong.
My thought of not having it in play was mostly not to expose the hammer itself. And in my head, I was going to equip with Core Outfitter anyway, since I didn't have Metalcraft.
Mm-hmm.
So
you were just more concerned with not getting like Abrupt Decade or...
Right. So, like, if I'm going to equip it to that Sanctifier, I might not expose it this turn, was my thought. Because I can still play... Although, then I can't double spell next turn outside of that play. So, I don't know. There's... Yeah, I would be inclined not to play the hammer and just play the Sanctifier.
The question I would ask about not casting hammer is that... Do we think our opponent has discard spells in their deck?
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. That's fair. I guess... They're actually
and
probably...
Also, if they have the Abrupt Decay or the, whatever shatter effect they have,
they still have it.
Does us not
That's fair.
the hammer here actually play around it? So
that's fair. Yeah.
And also, with the 1 mana this turn, is Prismatic Ending, this Ignoble Hierarch still relevant enough? I think the answer to... I personally don't think that I want to make this exchange anymore, because they might have a Pithing Needle or some other permanent we want to deal with more than the...
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think playing the hammer makes sense.
At this point, I might even think that Tarmogoyf is probably one of the only cards I'm really interested in Prismatic Endinging. That isn't like specifically a hate card for our ability to equip. Just because it's a large green creature.
How did they get that back?
They just drew a second copy of it.
Did they?
There's one in the exile.
Oh, all right. Okay. It's a thing that happened. Oh, well. I would probably just play 2 creatures here. I think that you want the Pure still in play. And I would probably Core Outfitter and attach to the Core Outfitter.
And hold Ornithopter in your hand?
I guess you could just play the Ornithopter and put it on the Ornithopter. That actually is probably a better line.
I think there's a lot of ways to do this. I think they're representing... Like, right now they're representing...
Bolter Unholy Hate, yeah.
So, I might just lead on Outfitter and see if they...
Oh, and just equip to the Outfitter and see if they do anything. Yeah, I think that's probably really smart.
And now we can kind of decide what we want to do with our other 2 mana. If we want to...
Well, you could still do the same thing, right? You could play the Ornithopter, play the other Outfitter, and then put it on the Ornithopter now.
I kind of think I might prefer to play the Pure Steel Paladin, just because I think that in the positions where we'll wind up without Metalcraft, I would rather have Core Outfitter for them having a
yeah, that's fair.
Spell.
That's fair.
But I'm also not sure that I want to play any of it.
I definitely would play another creature.
I think if we're in for a penny, we're in for a pound. I would play these 2 creatures.
Okay. Okay. Is it Goblin Bombardment?
Goblin Bombardment would be bad for us. For sure. Wrist.
I don't know what this card does.
Creates insects, or it like bone splinters things. Also counts as a 1/1 insect creature when it's on the battlefield. So,
okay.
I guess they're gonna sack a token, kill our Outfitter, and ping the Pure Steel Paladin down.
Okay. A lot of stuff happened there. and no blocks. You can exile the Mayhem Devil. That's a lot of mana.
Yeah, we need to play the Drum to exile the Mayhem Devil too, because we need the third color of mana.
Oh. Yeah, that sounds bad.
I think, though, that we don't have to answer it this turn, and sometimes the simplest plays are the best plays in spots like these, so...
Yeah. Probably attacking the Planeswalker, right?
Yeah.
They're like pretty close to dead, though.
Yeah, I think with them drawing these cards, okay, yeah, we're definitely dead to Goblin.
Yeah, that was...
But now we've learned. And also, like I said, when we cut that hand, that is on kind of the...
Yeah, it was a slower hand. I think that if we don't want Prismatic Ending, we might want Seal of Cleansing or Pithy Needle, something for the bombardments and
Yeah, I think
stuff.
we might still want the Prismatic Endings to catch the bombardments. I think we might just want the Pithy Needle more than the Soul Guide Lantern.
Yeah, that could be true.
Because between Grist...
Yeah, that's fair.
Wrenn and 6, there's enough things to be able to name.
Makes sense to
I
me.
definitely don't want Ornithopter, or definitely don't want Mendite against the Mayhem Devil deck. So
Yeah, I agree. This hand technically has everything you need but white mana.
yep, but I think we have to mulligan it.
I agree. This hand also
I actually really like this
has
hand.
everything you need.
Um,
Are you going to pitch an ending?
Yeah, I think so. It's either that or pitching a hammer, but I think that having the hammer will be good.
I like that. I like that we'll be able to we'll have a redundancy of equipment with this hand. Yeah, maybe.
We will have a huge redundancy of equipment, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll be able to get, like, the Saga could get Pithy Needle if we need it, or get us Shadow Spear.
I'm gonna let you play out this game, and I will jump in when I can, just
Okay.
because you only have 5 minutes left. I got one a lot.
The reason for casting hammer there is because,
You gotta get him to pop it sometime.
yeah, and also, I mean, they might be forced pop it on my third chapter versus Saga, but getting my tokens out of range of a lot of the interaction is definitely a concern of mine. And if they don't pop the E this turn, to like play something else, I will just grab Pithy Needle, which is why I grabbed Shadow Spear off the Stoneforge Mystic in the first place, because I knew I would need that card, but also would wind up needing the Shadow Spear as well, instead of grabbing the plating when I had access to the Shadow Spear through the Saga anyway.
Makes sense. This is going to be a very large and tramply construct here in a second.
I think I'm going to dead myself to them having a removal spell for the Pithing Needle, but I'm going to focus on playing constructs with my Saga and having these constructs be as large as possible, because I think there's just a lot of things that can go wrong that are yeah, I guess they draw crime and punishment, but I can't really prepare for that.
It's not a lot your deck can do against that anyway, so.
Alright.
I thought you didn't attack the Planeswalker, and I was going to ask you why. And then you did. It's like, oh, he did, okay.
Yeah, I think the most important decision points that, like, I talked about the Stoneforge for the Shadowspear there when the Shadowspear was obviously relevant, and making sure I could find Pithing Needle for Grist or Engineer Explosives if they had it when I made that decision on turn 2. Otherwise, I think that game was pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I did think that the moment of playing the hammer was important. It either forces them to pop it then, or decide if they're gonna wait to pop it. And if they wait to pop it, you're like, okay, fine. I'm fine with that, because it's as the Pithing Needle, and they can't interact with the Pithing Needle unless it's on the stack anyway.
To let it,
right.
To let the Saga trigger resolve. I think that casting the first hammer in a lot of positions is, even though they have the Engineer Explosive face up, I really care a lot because I know my mana is going to be tied up by that Urza Saga about getting a hammer down for any future.
Sure.
Too, where,
yeah, that makes sense.
If I draw Outfitter on the following turn, or I draw Pure Steel Paladin, I have a hammer in play to use, and growing the Saga. As you can see, the 2 Saga tokens are presenting lethal, even if I didn't draw this third hammer or put the second hammer in play, where I have 3 lethal attackers now with them at 16 because of the fact that I played out that hammer, and I've tapped out every turn since then, but I have enough artifacts for them to be both lethal.
Yeah, that makes
if they can't block it. So
that was also a really good showcase of kind of the difference, the different ways that the deck can win games rather than focusing on being a combo deck. So
I wonder what the Modern Leagues have for us this time. Oh, that Jund deck was pretty interesting.
That Jund deck was cute.
I think it's an Aspiring Spike deck. I forget how long ago we played it, but I definitely haven't actually seen it in action.
This hand looks bad.
It is bad. It's tempting sometimes to keep hands like this. I would probably keep this if any of these lands were a Saga, or
sure.
Maybe on a 5 I might keep this just because it has so much of an explosive hand. But there are certainly better 6s in our deck. As a rule of thumb, whenever it's close, I tend to lean towards keeping hands that are close but have a way to equip, as opposed to close and have a hammer, because you just have more ways to.
Yeah, I think I also would have kept that on 7 had it had a hammer. I would keep this hand and be sad.
It's a very sad hand. I think if I were on the play, I'd be much more inclined to keep it because I have Esper Sentinel, and I don't hate mulliganing a lot with this deck, but we could certainly try it. I'm not. It's just we're gonna be low on resources for most of the game. Yeah, I thought it over, and it just felt like a mulligan. This 5, however, looks
strong.
Not quite sure.
Are you supposed to put back the Pure Steel?
Yeah, I think Pure Steel is one of them. And then I think Outfitter might be the other. And then we just rock with the Aid and the Hammer and the Ornithopter.
That makes the most sense to me also. It's kind of sad, but I think that is also where I would have leaned had you asked me. I think that one thing that I'm learning about this deck also is that it actually, because of its resiliency, is it mulligans pretty well.
Yeah, you don't need all your cards are really cheap. Like a lot of your cards are just 0 mana things anyway.
Consistency is what I meant, not resiliency. But yeah, it's like
yeah,
that's a good draw.
I think our opponent is playing.
What is the land they played?
Glasspool Mimic.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So I think they're either playing like Merfolk or Spirits or something.
It's definitely one of those now. Oh man, that is a greedy keep by our opponent. So how does this work with both of them?
Yeah, it's just all of your auras and equipment spells have flash.
Okay.
So, for example, you can attack with our Ornithopter.
Right.
And then cast Colossus Hammer. After they declare no blocks. Hopefully they don't have Force Negation, although I think if they have Force Negation, they would Force Negation or Sigarda's Aid.
Fun fact, I have cashed 100% of the GPs that I've registered Ether Vial, or not GPs, SEGs that I've registered Ether Vial at.
A really good Magic card.
Yeah. Back in the day, I was a fish aficionado in Legacy. The Legacy opens that they had in Vegas.
I guess they're playing Spirits. No, by Cavern naming Spirit.
Our opponent seems very dead.
If they cast like a Skyclave Apparition, we could wind up back in trouble. We have a lot of time to dig out of that, and they're at 1 life. So, I'm gonna pick up my Luris here, rather than play the Springleaf Chrome, and
makes sense. Our opponent keeping a 1-land hand with tap land plus. Did they mulligan? Is that what happened?
No, they kept stepping.
That's interesting.
I'm assuming their hand was really good if they
drew some lands.
Drew the second land on turn 2 as opposed
or
to turn 3.
Were they on the play or the draw?
They were on the play.
Yeah, that's a interesting keep. Yeah, I like Path in this matchup. I also am a pretty big fan of Thoughtseize against these style of decks, but maybe not because they might be too aggressive for that.
I mean, it could certainly be possible. I guess where I would start is thinking about what are the cards that I want to board out here. I think our Esper Sentinels are going to be poor, because I think...
Yeah, they're basically just a creature deck. Yeah, I agree.
So I'd probably start there. And maybe also our Mem Knights might be poor, other than just being fast. It depends on how much we think we need to disrupt them, or how much we need to Thoughtseize them. I think our life total mattering... I think our life total does matter against them now. So,
I mean, if it's just a 4/4 shake up here, though, for like, I don't hate that. Like,
yeah,
I think that's totally reasonable, and I don't want to take out too many creatures out of our deck. My thought would be like, maybe I like Thoughtseize better on the play against them anyway.
Yeah, I could see that as well too, because it seems like a lot of their important cards are going to be their removal spells and their Aether Vials.
Right.
And the Thoughtseize can't hit Vial, and timing a Thoughtseize around the removal spells is going to be tough.
I also have some concern that our deck might not be good at playing Thoughtseize when we want to play Thoughtseize against them, where like we just don't want to always have the black mana when we would want to play it. But
yeah, it can be very, very costly in life total to Thoughtseize this deck. It's not very good at being... well, it's much better against the fair decks that don't do a lot to pressure your life total than it is against decks that are actively trying to kill you. I agree. It's definitely on the close side, but this is one of those hands where I can see just Stone Forging for Cranial Plating, Sogging for the Shadow Spear, and then racing with Ginger Brute
Yeah, I was
not
gonna.
have to worry
I was actually gonna say that it looks like a plating hand as well. So, also it is nice that you said that the construct gives other constructs +1/+1.
The constructs are 0/0s with +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So,
How did you mentioned that our Memnites would get bigger? How would they do that?
well, our Memnites make the constructs.
Oh, the Memnites make the constructs bigger.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I think we probably just want to play the Ginger Brute.
I would play the Ginger Brute and attack. Yes.
Run as fast as they can.
You can edit in the Shrek scene right there if you want. I don't know.
Run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man.
You're a monster.
I'm not the monster here. You are.
Oh,
That's I think we've lost.
I think we might be in trouble.
That's a beating.
Well, I think we might get 3 for 1 here.
Yeah, I assume you're paying for none of these, right?
Yeah, I think we just
3 for 1. You got 3 for none. He still has the Kataki.
humbly.
Okay, that was a moment. I'm not sure that we can beat that without drawing our removal spell.
I think that it will be possible, but
I guess we could specifically draw Inkmoth Nexus plus like Core Outfitter.
Whatever.
Yeah, and that actually would do it.
yeah, there's a lot to think about here. So, kind of planning out these turns. My plan currently is to just kind of grab things out of my deck until I can find an answer to Kataki.
With Double Saga, does it not make sense to still grab the plating? I mean, I guess you could also grab Springleaf Drum with the Saga.
Yeah, the problem is that we're gonna have to be like we have to figure out what the permanents we're gonna pay to keep around are, and plating's going to be pretty bad. But it is also the worst card in our deck and the least tutorable, so it might be the best thing to grab out. Or we could just get a second hammer and then a Sigarda's Aid presents lethal, which forces a block.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think that's actually what I want to do.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
This is true with Affinity. A lot of your draws will just lose to Kataki if you're on the plating draw.
Not exactly what we wanted to see. I honestly don't remember what that card does.
It says we can't cast non-creature spells with mana value greater than the number of lands we control. And if we cast a spell and no mana was spent to cast it, that spell's countered. So we'll counter all of our Memnites and Ornithopters. So we could pick up Luris here, or we could make a token and then pay for the token.
I like grabbing Luris, personally.
I kind of think so as well, because this token is not really something we want to pay for anyway. And Luris is a permanent we don't have to pay for.
Exactly. Well, that is a Sigarda's Aid.
That is almost the exact card we were looking for. If I had to say I was choosing my draw step, I probably would have said Sigarda's Aid. I think this means I'm going to go search up an Ornithopter.
What are they doing?
They're tapping my Stoneforge Mystic.
Interesting.
So, okay, I'm just going to let that resolve, and then I'm going to search. But I think that, as it stands, Ornithopter, we can We don't want to draw because of Lavinia. We don't want to get another permanent we have to pay for. And it gives us another attacker should we decide to pay for it next
Well,
turn.
we can't play it, right? Because it would just get countered anyway.
Well, exactly. This just puts it into play.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
So it just thins it's our best card to thin our deck of. And who cares about the rest of it? So
Is there no thought to actually playing the Lyris there?
we could play Luris and Ginger Brute. I think I just want to get the aid down, but maybe the aid tells too much about our hand. I didn't actually think about that hard because I was very excited about the aid.
It's because we're like probably not playing these hammers this turn, right? So that would lead me to want to have put the Lyris into play.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can see that. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, that actually, I think I just autopiloted there for a second, and I'm glad you called me out on that. That's like in my head, I think it might be because of my heuristics around playing against the other tribal decks, which are
Sure.
very force negation heavy.
Sure.
Where casting Sigarda's Aid when they only have one card in hand is pretty important.
Sure.
What is this?
I think that's the protection one.
It is. They have protection from even.
Okay.
Yeah, exposing the Sigarda's Aid is actually kind of dangerous if they draw like a prismatic ending, if that's a card in their deck, or
I don't know if they're actually playing spirits anymore.
well, they have Shacklegeist, so I have to believe
They
have
just
Spirit.
they just happen to have a lot of their non. That's too funny.
Okay, so I think
So they have no cards in hand now, right?
yes. So I'm going to pay for this.
That makes sense to me.
Well, I think I should have just tapped the Ursa Saga.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
sure,
also-
but I also don't think I'm going to play Lyris. I'm definitely casting hammers in this combat. 'Cause
Right.
I can only tap one creature. I'm going to abyss them with another creature, and then
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
so actually I might make a token because I have the aid, and I can go get another hammer or Shadow Spear. Having more attackers the next turns starts to overwhelm the Shacklegeist. So I
Sure.
probably wouldn't have used the white mana anyway, and I would use the Saga because I don't want to cast Lyris still. Well, I guess we're casting Hammer, we can't use Saga, but we can't use Lyris Saga. So
Yeah. They only know about one of the hammers, right?
yeah,
I don't know if that's. I guess they can't block with the Kataki anyway, so.
well they know about the hammer, right? So if they block with the Kataki, and then I just play the hammer, then they lose the Kataki, and I keep my hammered creature. This game is way more interesting than I thought it was going to be when we had an opener that was just going to beat them down with an Urza Saga, and they'd mulligan to 5. But I think we're getting through the Kataki currently.
Well, now
No,
the Lyris is pretty live with like the Memnites and stuff too. So
Yeah, definitely. Although we're also okay.
So now they can't tap something down.
They can tap one thing currently.
Don't they need that other
So
thing?
they're gonna tap the Ornithopter, I'm assuming, and then block with the Lava Ring Venture is their plan. So I think
You just
thing
get
to do-
spear though, right?
Yeah, I think the thing to do is going to be to pay for both of these.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And then go and get Spear and put Spear on Mystic.
Don't you just want to wait to see what they tap anyway?
Well, with what they're showing, if I put Spear on Mystic, they will either have to tap Mystic, and then I get to hit them with a hammer.
Well, is 0 is even also for what it's worth.
Yes, but this has flying, so it'll have flying until it has a hammer on it.
Oh, got it. So okay, that makes sense.
So then they have to choose between tapping the Stoneforge with the Shadow Spear on it and the
for some reason I thought the spear was going to your hand, so I was super confused, but after I realized that it was coming into play, what you were saying made sense.
It's been a super weird game. It's also possible that had we Stoneforged for the spear instead of the second hammer, this would be a much better position because we could...
Because you would have flash on the spear.
Exactly. So I could have just tutored up a hammer, put the hammer on the Ornithopter as well, had 2 attackers, and then speared whatever blocks, so I guaranteed a gain of life.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm pretty sure...
Is there any thought to just actually playing the Pure Steel Paladin and moving stuff to the Ornithopter now?
Yeah, if I attack, I die. So I actually need to go to second main phase and then play the Pure Steel and put the things on...
you might want to split...
Dead anyway?
If you split them, you're not dead, right?
Well, they just have 8 in the air, so I think I actually need to move them to the Pure Steel. I split them, so I put the Shadow Spear on the Ornithopter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that doesn't matter anyway, because they're just going to tap down the Ornithopter and kill you. You could play the other Ornithopter, though.
Yeah. Well, Kotaki's really good.
It really is, though.
I'm a little more suspect of Lava Brink Venture, but...
Yeah, that's
Our opponent has a plan, and I appreciate that. I do have a lot of even casting cost creatures in my deck.
Game was wild.
And then I guess we can only pay for... We can pay for 3 things and tutor up another thing. So it has to be some world where they make an attack that doesn't kill us and also doesn't leave them being able to tap, and then we tutor up another hammer, play a hammer from hand, move the Shadow Spear onto the thing we just put the hammer on, which is probably just the Pure Steel Paladin, and that's lethal.
Well, they're probably not going to tap your stuff now because you have 2 blockers, right? Maybe they will. You could also
It's great.
It's a crazy game. You could also just tutor a hammer, put it on Mystic, then move Shadow Spear to, whatever. They'll tap that one down. Then they would die if they attacked with both flyers.
Yeah, they're just not going to attack.
It makes sense to me. So I assume we're sacrificing the Ornithopter to the right.
And then paying for everything else.
Yeah.
And then we need to draw a land so that we can cast the hammer from hand and put it on the Ornithopter that's attacking.
Yep. You could also keep... Yeah.
I could also choose not to keep the Ornithopter.
I was just thinking that. I wonder
I
if...
have to play the hammer and move the Shadow Spear so I lose all of the... It's all the same, except I wouldn't have to draw a land to cast this hammer.
Yeah, that seems worse than thinking about it, though. Because if you get to attack with this Ornithopter, you're probably going to kill their flyers.
Yeah.
Is not the best draw.
No, I think we actually just... I think we are dead now, because...
I also think we are dead.
We don't have the Shadow Spear in our hand. We can play out the last turn or whatever. It's not...
You could put in the Springleaf Drum.
We could also draw the land off of the Pure Steel.
I was going to say, you could have put in a Springleaf Drum, right? And then...
But a drum removes an attacker. It doesn't actually get us a mana there.
Sure, that's fair.
So as we're doing, we're putting the hammer on...
You probably want to put it on the Stoneforge and then try and draw a land. You did not draw a land, though.
Yeah, right, they're just going to tap 2 things and then attack us for lethal. So I'm
Yep.
going to concede.
Makes sense to me.
All right. Well,
was...
now knowing they have Kataki, I'm much more in favor of some.
Especially on the play.
Yeah.
I actually wonder if we're supposed to board out plating.
Yeah, now that I know that's kind of what their plan is, and it's not engineer explosives or something like that, which maybe could have been more easily deduced. I'm pretty sure I can do without plating. I also think like the outfitters are not as necessary as well, because it's a little less important for us to be redundant on comboing. And we could also, because we're not so heavy on double white cards, we can put out a Canopy Land or a Plains or a fetch. Probably not a fetch.
I think putting out a Canopy Land makes a lot of sense.
Because in a lot of times we would just, like, when this land was just a Steel Shaper's Gift, that would often be one of the first cards you could cut. And so
Sure.
the deck operates fine on 22 lands. It's not.
My blindness cannot see the time we have remaining for what it's worth.
Okay, we have 8.5. So
this hand has most of it.
yeah, it's short a hammer, and I think that on 7 we likely have better 6s.
That's probably true from what I've seen of this deck's mulligans. This deck
This
is
another hand.
This deck is
really scary against Kataki.
well. I don't know that you can do much about that.
Yeah.
I would assume you would keep this and put back the Memnite.
Yeah. That is exactly what I'd do. And I'd lead on Sigarda's Aid Go. So I guess we could cast Ornithopter in hopes that we draw a hammer or something. Because next turn
you can't. I was just gonna say that that I don't hate playing the Ornithopter. Well,
now that they've cast Force Negation, I probably am not going to cast Ornithopter. But
that's fair. Thoughtseize just got a lot better, if for what it's worth, as well.
Yeah, for sure. And also, we're still like in a pretty good position as far as having Paladin plus Hammer rolled up here. But we need to get the Saga rolling.
Did they just pitch the Spirit Captain Hexproof guy?
They did, yeah.
Dude, let's talk some Boomer Magic. This deck was sweet.
I play that deck. I play that John Finkel Spirits deck from that PT at GP Baltimore when I was like 16 or something, 17 maybe.
How old are you?
26.
Oh man, you're so much younger than me.
Yeah, I'm.
You is baby too.
I'm a baby, but I'm an ancient. It's kind of great. I remember Cawblade era, and also I'm not yet 30, so
there you go.
I don't know which land you would play here, but I'm interested in your thoughts. Between, like, we could Fetch Shock, Godless Shrine to be able to have Thoughtseize available to us if we drew it. We could just get a Plains. We could play our second Saga, or we could play our Inkmoth.
I think that for me, if I'm going to, I would Fetch Shock, play Pure Still, because we're going to have Metalcraft and
a hammer.
And a hammer. That also will make it so that when we do play our Inkmoth, Man, all of the lines seem like they all have merits for what it's worth. All 3 of those lands.
Yeah, it's really tight. There's a lot of situations like this. So what I'm thinking about, so the Pure Steel line is its weakness is that we're giving up Saga tokens in favor of trying to end the game immediately, and it opens us up to an amount of removal.
Yeah,
We don't get a hammer equipped out of it immediately. We could play it a bit slower by playing the Ink Moth.
why do we lose out on the token? Don't we just get to make the token next turn no matter what?
Well, so what we can do with this line if we play Ink Moth is make a token and then upkeep, make a token, search a hammer.
Got it.
And then
Then you would I like that line a lot better.
Yeah, developing Ink Moth in this spot is also really strong for follow-up turns of like Pure Steel, showing the Pure Steel, equipping to the Ink Moth, and then jumping it or whatever.
And that is just such an interesting card for...
Blockers or Saga tokens.
It does do that.
Totally blanks them. So...
Ooh. See, now I would be tempted to not make the... Oh, I guess I kind of want to, though, so that I... So we're losing that mana if we don't use it now, so I guess I would make the token.
Yeah, well, we're in our main phase, so we could float the mana and cast the Stoneforge Mystic.
Oh, it happens during your main phase.
Yeah, because it's a Saga. It's a lot of intricacies around just playing with this card. So we could go and Stoneforge for like Shadow Spear and tutor the hammer with the Saga, or vice versa.
I like putting the Shadow Spear into play for what it's worth at this point, simply because it lets us... well, no, because we can't actually equip it this turn.
I do think it's going to be important to find. So the question is, how important is another token? I think another token is not that important because of this Lavaburn Venture compared to... Well, I guess they're not dying to Inkmoth next turn.
They would die to Inkmoth next turn, right?
Well, they might just have a flying blocker.
Oh, sure.
Because I am concerned about time, I'm going to go with kind of my gut here and say that not making a token and going for a quick kill is the way that we win this game.
Okay.
So we're going to search for the Shadow Spear, cast the Stoneforge Mystic.
I like this line. I think this line is quite strong. This is also what I would have done.
Let me go get the hammer. And then I'm just going to put the hammer in play right now.
Is there a reason to put the hammer in play right now and with Kataki potential?
We will have the mana to pay for both of our equipment.
Okay.
So even if they Kataki, we can just pay, and then if we draw a white source, we can play Pure Steel and double equip. And also, I think if they had Kataki, they would have cast it by now, but maybe I'm just going to Kataki right as I'm speaking this. So, okay, I'm not.
That's not a
Maybe they'll
Kataki.
violin Kataki. Who knows? It is, however, a flying blocker, so the Ink Moth Avenue is shut off, but that's fine because we planned for it with everything else we did. So, feeling kind of committed to getting Kataki at this point if it happens. So,
Yeah.
well, actually, if they don't have another flying blocker, this Ink Moth will be lethal. But in order to play around some shenanigans, I'm going to just try to put the hammer on the construct token first, and the Shadow Spear for free before I spend time animating Ink Moth. Oh, I can't double animate, though. I didn't think this through because I'm concerned about block. That's fine. I just want to attack with it. It's going to be Shacklegeist. Oh my god. This card is Thorn on my side.
You can attack with the Inkmoth now.
Oh, I could. It's true.
That's too funny.
Actually, I want them both on the Stoneforge Mystic. Maybe I should have brought in Pith Needle just to name Shacklegeist.
Dude, it's like definitely been a and like a pretty big annoyance.
Cast Ornithopter. Equip Shadow Sphere to Constructs token. Animate Inkmoth Nexus.
Oh, wait, I still can't double activate. Well, I can't double attack it. If not, they just tell me how I end. Okay, yeah. Inkmoth Nexus. Move Hammer Home to Inkmoth Nexus. Move combat.
How big is the construct?
It's an 8/8.
Okay.
It will be a 9/9 by the time damage is assessed, because I'm just going to make a token main phase to F6 twice. I think we're going to time out here, but I think we might just be losing this game to Shopping Geist no matter what. I think in paper, this game plays out a little differently. Just in that, probably have more time to get through everything. And not to parse
Yeah, I mean the coaching also, like I you know, it's just part of doing coaching sessions, right? Is you time out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But definitely think.
I actually think that we are pretty likely to win this game most of the time.
Yeah, I think we certainly have inevitability in this situation. I think we're in an advantage position. It's just a question of making all the clicks.
Because like once you make another construct, if they don't have Kataki, they're like kind of just dead to those. You have 13 seconds left.
30.
No, you might still win if you just make constructs. Like you can start attacking with like your little dinky guys too. Can they tap two things?
They can only tap one.
Oh, well.
Have them in the abyss.
It's kind of funny how much of your... Oh, well, that's GG's. It's honestly not GG's, but... like, I think you win that game in paper still.
Yeah, and I think...
Because do you just, like, play the... Oh, I guess they can still tap stuff down. That was interesting. I want to go over some things that I learned and talk to you about them. So the first is like this deck plays Urza's Saga in like a very different way than I've seen the other decks in the format play it, and that was really interesting to witness. Like I know we only played 2 matches, but I'm like, oh man, like just like the number of lines with Saga for this deck compared to some of those other decks is like actually pretty like you're doing a lot more with one card. That's probably the biggest one that I learned. The second one is kind of like this deck has a really interesting way of sideboarding where you're basically never going to shave something. Like because of the way that the deck is constructed, you're like, okay, if I don't need this effect, then they're all gone. And that could be like a symptom of being like an aggressive combo deck, but it really needs you to have good sideboarding discipline in order to sideboard with it, which is interesting. And then the third and last thing that I'll talk about is kind of this the sequencing of your creatures is not intuitive. With like decks like Affinity, right? Like it just didn't like you're just gonna play your creatures for the most part. And like the intricacies of that deck came from understanding how you're gonna use your mana more than anything else. And while this deck has that, like it's when you're going to use your mana is kind of more the difference there. So those are kind of like the big 3 things that I learned that I thought that you did a really good job of showcasing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a huge amount of depth in this deck. Like I said at the beginning, it's definitely one of the most intricate and difficult modern decks I've played. I think there's a lot of times you play it there's a lot of times you play it like a lot of different, very complicated and difficult decks from Magic's history, and Urza Saga presents with a lot of decisions of, are you comboing or are you beating down? And
there were a lot of turns where you just did something completely different than I thought about with the sagas or just the use of your mana overall. Like your sequencing on your creatures and stuff like that was just so different. And I don't know if that's like that comes with experience thing, or if that is I don't know. I was impressed with your ability to kind of like also not just be able to do it, but explain to me like, here's why I think this, for not just right now, but like, kind of like Hayden said in our last episode, like in 3 turns, I'm going to need to do this. And I thought the line that you took with the saga specifically against the gen deck with the explosives was like pretty clutch.
I've been thinking about that hand episode for a few days now, and like, especially that, like, just drawing the game backwards. From the end states, and like how planning it helps you. And this is definitely a deck where, because there's so many different ways you could choose to try to end the game, that skill is so displayed in a way that it's not in like a Sphinx's Rev control way where you're like, I know that at the end of the game I'm gonna have all the cards, but it's like, I know I'm gonna want to win by double activating my Inkmoth Nexus with Hammer on it and stuff. So I mean, it's really tight, really technical. I'm glad that I was able to help you. I hope that if you have a modern tournament coming up near you and you put together Hammer Time, you would feel comfortable playing it now. Or
I might play this at my next 1K just because of this. So if people do want coaching on this deck, where can they find you?
They can find me. My DMs are open on Twitter. That is the best place to find me for this. At twitter.com/morenothings. And yeah, I'm very flexible about time, and we can talk about rates and stuff. And I really just want to be able to help people who want help. So
cool. You can find me at Swizard You can listen to Abe and I every week on the Constructive Criticism podcast here on the YouTube channel. If you get a chance to leave a comment, let us know what you thought of this video. More types, like if you want to see more of this stuff, interact with this one, because that's how you'll get that type of stuff. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you so much to our editor. His info will also be in the show notes. If you are looking for just an awesome dude to help you with your videos, I can't recommend Fernando more. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you guys all in the next episode. All right, we'll see you guys all then.